Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 7, 2011 meeting of the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority and the Edina City Council. Roll call, please, Ms. Mangan.
Member Bennett?
Here.
Member Brindle?
Here.
Member Sprague?
Here.
Member Swenson?
Here.
Mayor Hovland?
Here. For those of you who had an opportunity to look at our agenda, you'll notice that there are certain items grouped under Roman 4. Strike that. We did the roll call. Is there a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
So moved. Second.
So moved and second that we approve the meeting agenda. Discussion? All those in favor of approving the meeting agenda as shown, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Now, over to the consent agenda. All of those items that would be handled on a single motion basis are embodied under Roman 4, which says adoption of consent agenda. Is there anyone on the council that wishes to remove an item or items from the consent agenda? Member Bennett.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. I would like to, for information purposes, remove items H, K, and N, and for discussion purposes, remove item M.
Oh, very good. Anyone else? Member Swenson.
A, I have a change on minutes.
All right. We've got some reworked minutes in front of us here for May 17.
Yeah, but I have an add to that.
Okay. You want to, is anybody else on the consent agenda? All right.
I would move approval of the rest of the consent agenda, B, C, D, E, F, G, I, J, L, O, P, and Q.
Second.
All right. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Sprague?
Aye.
Member Swenson?
Aye.
Member Bennett?
Aye.
Mayor Hovland?
Aye. First consent agenda item we need to address for informational purposes, Member Bennett wanted to remove is 4H. Oh, the minutes, excuse me. Yeah, we got the minutes.
I moved an additional line in on page 7 under the discussion of rooftop dining. I think we came to the conclusion that we were going to meet with planning on it, so here's my line. Member Swenson suggested a joint meeting with planning to discuss how rooftop dining could be phased in at a later date this fall.
Second.
The meeting being at a later date this fall, not phasing in.
Do you mean could be phased in or could potentially be phased in?
Potentially be phased in, and the meeting would be at a later date this fall, not phasing in rooftop dining.
It's been moved and seconded. We make that change to the minutes. All those in favor of that change say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. You move the minutes then in their adopted form?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second to adopt the minutes in their modified form?
Second.
All right. Discussion? All those in favor of adopting the minutes for May 17, 2011 for the regular meeting of the Edina City Council, but with the one change made by Member Swenson, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. All right. Now, Member Bennett, 4H.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I spoke with Manager Neal earlier today about these items, and I know that there has been a significant amount of interest among the public, residents and business owners about the water treatment issue and this plant, and would appreciate hearing Director Hoole's explanation for the public of what is going to happen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bennett and Council, before you is a request for purchase, which is item 4H. It's for the water treatment plant number 6, and this is a water treatment plant that's going to be located underneath the Jerry's ramp in the lowest level of the Jerry's ramp, actually, where we used to store our trucks and park maintenance equipment in that level. Now that we're not in there, we've actually been working on this project probably since 2004 when well 7 started showing some vinyl chlorides numbers that hadn't exceeded the federal requirements, but it got close enough where we were uncomfortable operating that well, and so we shut down that well in 2004. We asked the PCA to investigate where the pollution plume was coming from, and so they've been working on this since 2004. And actually, STS was a consulting firm that actually became AECOM that was working with the PCA at the time and has done all the groundwater modeling, and actually they've actually performed the design of the treatment plant itself. The cost for this project came in at, there was actually 6 bidders. Real tight bidding. The low bid was $5.66 million. The high bid was $7.79 million. And Municipal Builders was the low at $5.6 million. The PCA actually to date, since they paid for a lot of all the investigation, and they've also paid for the design of the treatment plant itself, they've contributed about $790,000, almost $800,000 to the project itself. When they did commit to the design of the project, they had indicated that was it, that they weren't going to be, there was no other funds available since they're under the state budget also. So anyway, so we're taking it over from there. What it does is it eliminates the treatment plant at 50th and Wooddale. It'll combine 4 wells in the future, 2 within the first couple years here. The well down at 50th and Wooddale, and then the well over at well number 7, Sherwood Park, and then eventually the well over by Highlands Lake at Mirror Lakes Drive and Interlochen, and then the other well at Benton and Hanson that we'll be combining into this facility. We'll be utilizing a lot of the information that they've discovered through the investigation of the groundwater system, because we'll be monitoring where that plume is and where the plume is at, and be pumping accordingly to control that plume as it's coming into Edina. Not sure if I can add anything else to that, if that covers the treatment plant itself. So,
the restatement of the easement is, again, just clarifying the right that the city has always had to that lowest level, but making it clear that it's exclusive use.
That's correct. And actually, on my way in here tonight, our city attorney pointed out that needs to actually go to the Housing and Redevelop, HRA actually, also. So you'll see that on the next council agenda, just as a consent with the HRAs, just as a formality. Apologize for that.
Other questions for Director Hull? Member Bennett, would you move H, 4H, and 4K?
And
Or do you want a separate explanation?
nope, I will move both of those and also move the agreement, which is N, I believe.
Clerk Mangan, do you want a roll call on all 3 of those? All right. Is there a second on H, K, and M?
No,
It goes-
N? Excuse me.
I think that's a Nancy.
It is. N. Moved and seconded, we adopt H, K, and N under Section 4. Any further discussion?
I just need some clarification.
Sure.
With the comment that something is going to be in the HRA agenda next month, or at our next meeting, what portion of what we're moving on right now is going to be in the HRA agenda next month, next meeting?
That would be.
And should we move on it tonight then, or should we wait?
I guess that would be a question of the.
Do it tonight? Okay, that's fine. Just want to know.
All right. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of adoption of items 4, H, K, and N, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Next matter was 4M. Member Bennett, that was for discussion purposes.
And that is also on Director Hull's staff report.
This, the request before you is for design services for a bike boulevard project. In 2009, we were granted $250,000 grant from the transit, through the Transit of Livable Communities. It's a federal aid type grant. At that time, the TLC had indicated to me that those funds were for infrastructure improvements and couldn't use those as for consulting fees. I also was indicated that the process would be more streamlined than what you would typically have on a federal aid. Both of those did not become true. We were going to do it in-house. We are our capacity is fairly limited, given the amount of work that we have in the engineering department. So I was looking at it last fall and into this winter and realizing that it's a lot more involved than that we had time to do. So I've asked a couple of consulting firms to give me a proposal on it. Well, actually, the first one I asked, and after I got their proposal was $45,000, and I asked another firm, you got to be able to do it cheaper than that. I didn't give them that number, but asked for their proposal, and it was around $28,000. So tonight, what I have before you is a proposal to accept their proposal and move on with the project. You still could go back if the TLC were to allow you or allow the city an extension of time to use part of the $250,000 for consulting fees, but we'd have to go through another process of going out for a request for proposal, request for qualifications, which would extend this out probably another month and a half or so to follow the federal process if we were going to use federal funds for consulting fees itself.
Member Brindle.
When is the sunset on this money?
You know, I've never been given a firm sunset, but we do have Steve Clark from the TLC that's in the audience that could come up and possibly speak to that. Okay. So, would you like him to? Steve, you could come
on up. Nice to see you.
One of the side.
You want to use one of the side podiums and then give us your name and address too. Sure. Your business address is fine.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, I'm Steve Clark with Transit for Livable Communities. I reside in St. Paul, Minnesota. Happy to be here. And I apologize for the miscommunication. I think that's transpired since we approved this award in 2009. It was our hope that this project could get underway in 2009, and that was one of the compelling reasons to fund it. It seemed like a lot of the engineering had been done, though there were some details that remained. We did not set for any of the projects a firm sunset date. I think looking back, it may have been that may have been a mistake. We still do not have a sunset date. Our goal with all of our projects is to get the very best projects that we can, and we are extremely patient with the managing authorities to try to make that happen, because we understand that these are oftentimes controversial. They're new. The goal of Congress when they established this pilot program in this area, or one of 4 pilot programs around the country, was to actually try to change travel behavior. So they said to us, here's $25 million to invest in this area, but what you need to do with this money is actually show that this kind of investment will get people out of their cars and using bikes or walking for transportation purposes. So we're a little bit concerned about what we're seeing today being proposed, because it may fall short of that goal. Putting up signs or sharrows in the roadway doesn't necessarily encourage more people to get out there and ride a bicycle. So we're hoping that whether it's through this engineering firm that Wayne has been negotiating with, or another one, that enough time will be taken to tackle these challenging problems and really come up with the best plan possible. And it might mean, looking at, removing lanes, removing parking lanes, et cetera, to create enough space for bike lanes. But I know I answered far more questions than you asked me just now. So,
Member Sprague.
Thanks for being here today, Mr. Clark. Question about the consulting services. So there was some ambiguity about whether these could be included in the $250,000 grant. Can you resolve that for us? Could we include consulting services as a separate project memorandum?
It's possible. I mean, when we first negotiated this, the amount that was presented was more than what our board accepted. But the board at the same time basically said for all the projects that they were approving that year, that was 2009, there could be I think they said 10% of the total costs could go into engineering services. Since that time, the City of Minneapolis and other jurisdictions have brought to our attention that because these are truly pioneering projects, that 10% simply is not enough to do the engineering. So we have, because of various requests from other cities, we have become more flexible with those, with that parameter. And so, yes, a percentage of these dollars could go into engineering. But like Wayne, Mr. Houle suggested, that would set this project back. I mean, because you then do have to go through an RFP, and you know, you're getting the state and the federal government involved with that. So there's pros and cons of either approach.
So if we did include it, it might delay the start of the project, but it wouldn't necessarily endanger the funding.
It would not. Well, again, our board of directors is most interested in getting the best project possible. So we would rather see the project completed in 2012, but be a project that really serves the interests of this community in a way that you can be proud of, and that it truly is a model. We'd rather see that situation than rushing through creating some plan sets that would then be less than satisfactory. And it may be that if there's significant deviations from what the engineering firm decides is feasible from what the initial award was based on, that then we would have to basically go back to the drawing table and say, well, this is too much of a deviation, and therefore we cannot fund the construction. So either way, you could lose the money, but I think getting the best planning study is probably the best assurance that you'll get the money for the construction.
And going the other way, if we were to take more time and go back to the table and redesign this, including the consulting services, would there be a possibility for an increase in the reward for a truly groundbreaking project or a model project?
Well, these are all good questions. Well, in fact, we have had that request from other cities. Sometimes when you do the thorough analysis with the engineering, you discover that there are either enhancements that you would like to add to a project, or that in fact what the earlier cost estimates were based on. Maybe there's some other confounding factors. So we have actually increased funding for several projects. Typically, it's done when we are convinced that what is being proposed is truly an enhancement, an improvement over what was initially submitted. So yes, to answer your question, there is a potential where you could have not only the engineering component funded, but also additional dollars for project enhancements.
And in terms of the original, you started, this was a negotiation or a collaboration. Where does the current design sit in regards to where you started? I mean, tell me how the process started. Did you start with a preliminary design and a recommendation, and then they got to this Shero design in the end? How did that work?
Well, this has been a sort of a give and take process. I mean, initially we received an application from Public Works in 2008. It had some strong merits. We didn't believe it was mostly a kind of a share the road and bicycle boulevard type of approach. We felt that it could be a stronger project, so we began a series of negotiations with people from the Bike Edina Task Force and Mr. Hu, and we then received a revised proposal that integrated a number of different features that we had talked about. The final proposal that I think you received in your packet, dated February 9th, 2009, it still leaves some room for exploration of whether or not parking, for instance, parking, our hope was that, in fact, we felt pretty strongly that there would be an effort made to remove parking along Wooddale so that bike lanes could be placed along Wooddale. What I'm seeing now, it looks like there's been a determination made that that is not feasible. So that would be an issue that our board would, I think, be concerned about.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I see the, Member Bennett, do you want to go first? I can ask a few.
Mr. Mayor and Council, keep in mind that we still need to go through the public process on this, that we still need informational meetings wherever we put this bike boulevard to have those discussions on the parking bays and such. We have not communicated to the residents where this is proposed at this point, and we're anticipating doing that late July, early August.
What about with the Bike Edina Task Force and the ETC? Has there been any collaboration on this initial design?
They have seen the feasibility study and the application, and I don't believe that they've actually commented on it. The Bike Edina folks, I believe, had seen the original application also.
Steve, could I ask you a couple questions?
Sure.
I'm looking at the engineering proposal, which really was something that was put together post-award. So it's not in the form of an agreement, but I'm assuming that the award itself had language in it that was pretty broad and flexible, because when I look at the language of the engineering proposal, it seems fairly broad, and there's sort of an inference of flexibility on the part of TLC.
I think that's correct.
So when I hear you say, you could lose it if you do it, or you could do this project and we wouldn't fund it, or we might not pay for engineering services, this makes all of us anxious up here about what we're doing, and we don't want something to be amorphous. Yeah. And I don't think you do either, and so we need to know what do we need to do to make this a success and secure our $250,000 grant, which we assume we already have because it's embodied in the engineering proposal.
Yeah, the reason why this is where it's at today is while there wasn't a sunset date that was firm, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, we didn't call it a sunset date, but in the original agreement, for all the projects that were funded in 2009, there was in the award letter, basically, it said these projects must be completed or well underway by 2010. So it's only now where we have passed that date that we're looking at which projects really should be reprogrammed, where the funds, where there doesn't seem to be much forward movement. And so, this one is one that our board is quite aware of. There hasn't been a lot of public participation, or the engineering hasn't been completed. So as of about a month ago, I was told that unless there is some visible signs that this is moving forward in a positive way, that we need to let you know that we would be reprogramming those funds.
So what does that mean? We need to have some indication that things are moving forward in a visible way. What does the board mean by that?
It means that they're going to look to staff. They're going to want to know if we are confident that this community can make a project happen whose investment will be something that will actually result in the goals that the program is based upon. So it's a judgment call. And I mean, partly I was glad to hear that this meeting was happening tonight Wayne had mentioned that to me about a couple weeks ago. You know, it's yeah. I mean, there are no assurances at this point because 2010 has passed, and we're hoping. We'd hate to lose this project, but at the same time, if we're not convinced that it's going to be a project that is worthy of $250,000, we will just simply tell MnDOT that there hasn't been enough effort, you know, for this project to keep this, you know, in the hopper.
Member Swenson has some questions, and I've got a
Yeah.
few more.
When this
inquiries,
first
so.
came, I was very excited because this is an area that, one, I bike all the time, two, kids bike all the time because it goes from one side of the freeway to the other, and it goes from several parts of our community over to where we have a very large park and our outdoor pool. So to hear you say that you don't think this has value, I find very unnerving because for me, and personally, and for our area, the community that I live in, it has a huge value. So the fact that we have someone that can do the engineering now and we have a bid on it, and to me says that we intend to go forward with it. So I guess me telling you is I think it's important we intend to go forward with it, and I would like your assurance that it's a project that has value to you and that you believe we will go forward and are committed to it as a city. I mean, we have a bike task force, we have a transportation commission, and we are doing a lot with livable streets and trying to get people safely around our community other than in cars. So I would like your support for this, and I would like to go forward with this.
Thank you.
I did not hear Mr. Clark saying that this project did not have value. What I heard him saying was that there has not been visible progress on it as was intended when the grant was made in 2009. Am I correct?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yes. I mean, it's my understanding from the correspondence that we've seen before and the discussions that we've had before, as few as they are, that this is indeed deemed to be an important corridor for exactly the reasons that you described, Councilmember Swenson, for its location, for its connection of different parts of our community. And I think that's why the city has been shown the patience that it's been shown. But I think there's also this question of whether what's now proposed is actually worth $250,000 of public money. And when I see a project reduced to little more than lane sharing and sharrows, I really question how much public money, whether it's at a city level, state level, or federal level, that is worth. And I would like to see us come up with something better for that money. I'd like to see us use the money. It is an important corridor, but I think we can do better than the design that we have in front of us this evening.
And in that regard, I think the prerogatives of his board and our council are aligned in our community. We want the best possible design. And what I'm feeling is that we probably don't have it yet. And to get there, I think we should be leveraging the assets we have at our disposal. The Bike Edina Task Force, who spent time committed to writing the comprehensive plan chapter, and also to the Edina Transportation Commission. That's the type of collaboration we're trying to encourage with the new ordinance, and I think that will lend itself to a better product in the end. If we do go that direction and come up with a better design, I also heard you say that you'd be willing to wait for a better design. We don't have a specific sunset date. What you want is the best design. And so I don't think that we would endanger ourselves by trying to improve the project in his board's eyes, if that is correct.
That's correct.
The other thing is, if we can go back through a different process, it sounds like, and time is not an issue, it sounds like we could include this $27,000 into the $250,000. And I'm in favor of that. I don't think we have free money to allocate when it can be part of this grant itself. If in the end this showcase design that we come back with, it costs more than $250,000, I would be willing as a matter of policy to support that, but I also think there's an opportunity for additional funding. And it all comes back to the best design possible, and that is a product of the process used.
All right, thank you. Member Brindle.
You know, this is a project that I've had this nagging, what happened to that project? What happened to that money? That was a lot of money. What happened to that? And we have just not heard anything about it. So I'm happy that it's in front of us. I'm happy that there's possibly something that can be done with it, and understand that by our own negligence, we could have lost this opportunity. And I think that would be really too bad. But if we lost it, in my opinion, it's kind of one of those being a mother. You didn't do it. You didn't do it on time, so you didn't get the A. But nonetheless, I think that there are some consequences in letting this sit and not taking opportunities when they were in front of us. However, if in fact we can make something happen with this, and if MnDOT and TLC are so generous to make an extension, then I think we have to do our darndest to come up with the best design we can for the area and use that money the way you want us to use it. And so I haven't seen, other than, I did see the letter a long time ago, and then the information here. So I would be behind having us do everything we can to have a project that benefits our city and that uses this money the way it was intended to be used. But it can't be something that sits and lets papers stack on top of it again. It's got to be a priority.
Well, Steve, what do you think we need to do to preserve the opportunity down at TLC? Do you want one of us to come down there and speak to your board? You want the mayor to come, a council member, mayor and council? I mean, this is important for our community, and I think you hear a common voice up here that we want to do this. We want to be able to take advantage of that funding, that old Overstar funding that you've been managing so well, and do the right kind of project in the process. So,
well, I find this very reassuring. I'm glad to be here tonight, because I was wondering what the commitment was here. I think the most important next step is to probably for Wayne and I to get together and either. I mean, I'm not convinced that you need to go through an RFP to bring in, to choose among many different consulting firms, the best consulting firm, and use that federal process. I mean, I would be delighted if you used local funds, but I guess I would want to make sure that whoever is selected, that there is a commitment by both the Public Works Department and the firm that they will work with TLC, with the Bike Edina Task Force people, to truly come up with the best design that's feasible. And I understand that it's hard to make that determination without the public engagement, and that has to take place. And hopefully the firm that you contract with will be very proficient at engaging the public. But again, we're here. I'm here as a resource person. There are other TLC staff people that are very adept at being in the community process. We're happy to provide assistance any way that we can. But it starts with a commitment, the political will to really get the best project possible, and I guess that's what we need.
Good. Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the TLC actually has a board meeting on the 17th.
That's correct.
And their committee meetings on the 15th. And I'm not sure if it would be, in light of where the discussion is going, is to have a resolution from the council. I know we don't have it prepared ahead of time here, but a resolution stating our commitment to the TLC that they could hand off on the 17th to their board. And then if we could get something back from the TLC saying that we can have an extended date out, deadline or sunset date of possibly next year, 2012, sometime in the summer, that we can actually do a better job of the public participation and send it off to the Transportation Commission, and maybe they host the project and the public participation part of it.
That's an excellent suggestion, I think.
All right.
So staff, or what, at this point, is our best bet to request a resolution of support for this project? What do you want?
Yeah, I think it is. And given Mr. Clark's comments, we can get that ready for them as Mr. Houle described and get that to them. And we'll have some contact with him prior to the next council meetings, and we can report on that on the 21st.
All right, let's entertain a motion to that effect.
I would do so.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Good discussion. Steve, thanks for coming over here this evening. It was important to have you here. Well, now we have, let's see, before we move on to the proclamation, I had talked to the city manager today, and Member Sprague raised this up in our work session meeting.
Can we, I think we need an official action to table that item for tonight.
All right,
before we
I was wondering about
move on.
that.
Yep.
I
Entertain a motion to
so move.
table M, 4M. All right, discussion. All those in favor of tabling 4M, say aye. Discussion.
Yeah, Mayor, if we're tabling this, I think we should also include in the motion a direction to, well, this would be my amendment, to include consulting services as part of the $250,000 expenditure, rather than tabling a motion to have us fund separately the $27,000. As we now know, that can be part of the $250,000 grants.
It's potentially part of it. I mean, I understood that it was TLC that would make that call.
It's not potentially. You can include it. It's a question of doing a separate project memorandum to MnDOT, and then that affects the timing of the entire thing.
The other question, I believe, Your Honor, is whether or not, given what may end up being ultimate design, there can be additional funding obtained, and we don't have a firm commitment on that, but that question remains open, and there is the possibility that there could be more funding. So I would support that as an amendment to the motion, that we seek to fund this instead of through local dollars, that we seek to fund it through the grant dollars themselves.
Was your motion, it's my second, and I would accept that.
See, we'll vote on the amendment first. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Tabling this with the amendment attached. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Now, there were a number of items on the consent agenda tonight that involve various projects, well number 6, street reconstruction projects. All of them involved, I think with the exception of one, substantial savings over what was estimated by our engineers, at least on the bids. And so when I talked to the city manager this afternoon, I thought it might be nice for folks in our community to know just quickly, Director Houle, how the preliminary engineering estimates compared to the actual bids that came in on these various projects.
Yes,
and if you could provide that information now, I think it would be appropriate.
Mayor and Council, we did have a number of bids that were on the consent agenda items. They ranged in savings from our feasibility reports of anywhere from about 4% up to 15%, somewhere in there. Just some real quick calculation. What we're seeing is some of the roadway projects are around the 4 to 10% savings on them. But what we also are seeing is less contractor on some of these larger bids, that we're down to the 3 to 4 general contractors. And the prices, what we're seeing, are coming closer to what our estimates are. So it's indicating to me that the market is a little bit different than it was a year ago as far as an enormous savings. That we're not seeing the 15 to 20% savings, but we are seeing some savings still, but we're still anticipating prices to go up. And I think what that is the volatility in the oil market. A lot of these folks cannot lock in their fuel prices for the construction season like they used to. They only can lock it in for about a month at a time. The other one is the plastic pipe and locking in the plastic pipe prices and the supplies of plastic pipe. So.
Mayor,
Member Sprague?
I also think it's not just bids are coming in lower. I'd like to just commend the staff for their expertise in estimating. They're doing an excellent job, and I know Mr. Houle would never admit it, but I really commend you on the accuracy of the bidding that's coming in, so thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. And one of our key staff members is out in the audience, Jack Sullivan. I really depend on him for most of these projects, so I give most of the credit, if not all of it, to Jack.
Good. Thank you.
Is this where the camera pans on Jack?
Well, this is I will say a bittersweet time of the year here in 2011. One of our great public servants is retiring, Doug Johnson, and I had several people talk to me, including council members, all with the same notion that I had as well. We need to have a Doug Johnson Day in Edina, and Doug and his wife Karen are out here. And Doug, would you come up to the side podium while I read this proclamation? And I'm going to give you, I think the council will approve this proclamation. It's, may not get a unanimous vote, but I'm going to give you a nice version of it this evening, but for your party coming up, we're going to give you a version that you can hang on your wall. So the proclamation reads as follows. Doug Johnson Day in Edina, June 11, 2011. Whereas Doug Johnson, Director of Community Education Services and Community Relations, has served the Edina Public Schools and our community in various capacities for approximately 30 years. And whereas Doug Johnson was responsible for overseeing the creation of community education programs such as adult enrichment, youth development services, community volunteer programs, the Edina Family Center, early childhood family education, and also participating on behalf of the school district in many business education partnerships. And whereas Doug Johnson led Edina Public Schools programs such as school-age child care, early childhood family education, adult enrichment, summer shades, and Edina Resource Center as they doubled in size and scope. And whereas community education services revenues grew from under $800,000 to over $7 million during Doug Johnson's time as director. And whereas Doug Johnson assisted in the formation of Connecting with Kids, Edina Education Fund, Student Employment Pool, Edina Unplugged, and in the creation of several community dialogues on intergenerational, chemical health, and diversity issues, as well as various Edina High School welcoming activities such as FISH. And whereas Doug Johnson's work has garnered him recognition from the Minnesota Community Education Association, Edina School District, and the City of Edina for the outstanding projects he and his team helped to create and implement over his decades of service. Now, therefore, I, James B. Hovland, Mayor of Edina, do hereby congratulate Doug Johnson for his successful career and enduring influence in Edina, and thank him for his many years of service by proclaiming June 11, 2011, as Doug Johnson Day in Edina to honor Doug's lifetime commitment to public service in our community. Is there a motion to adopt the proclamation?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Doug, why don't you go ahead and comment, and I'll come down with the proclamation. I think Jennifer wants to get this for posterity. Take some photos for the history records here.
Tough to know what to say after that. I really appreciate that. I think the key element that you commented on was the word team, and the one thing that's really been probably the number one thing that I've dealt with in Edina has been working with the community. And as you know, we have an outstanding community, very involved. Everyone up there I've worked with, everyone over here, everyone over there, with the city, the school, the faith community, the Chamber of Commerce. We have incredible volunteers. Just looking at the council members, I could tick off what each of you has been involved with and have done over the years, and that's true with so many people. So I've been very, very fortunate to be able to just be a part of that. So anything that you listed there is really because we've put together groups, we've had a vision, put together some action steps, action plans, and we've been able to really strengthen the community. We think on behalf of families and on behalf of every Edina resident. So thanks for this honor. It's terrific,
Yep,
and it's nice for my wife to see this.
It's the least we can do, yeah.
Out there. I hope she's watching. And also my oldest daughter is here. And one of the unique things that's happening this weekend is that all of our children will be in the same place at the same time. And some of you know that we have 2 sons who are pilots in the Air Force. So getting everybody in the same square footage at the same time, very rare. Hasn't happened, I think, since 2009, if I remember right. So that's really going to be exciting to have everybody together. So thanks for this honor, and I hope I'm not totally going away. I hope I'll still be around to pesticate, as it were, with everyone, and look forward to continuing to work with all of you, even though I'll be in retirement. So
I'm sure you will, and I know Karen knows you will.
I'm sure Karen will want me out of the house fairly soon.
So let me walk
thanks
down.
so much. I appreciate that.
He's going to look at you anyway. Very good, thank you.
Next portion of the agenda deals with community comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to come forward and express a concern or raise an issue with the council that doesn't pertain to anything that's been considered in the past 30 days by the council, or which isn't slated for future consideration or isn't on the agenda this evening? Come forward, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jim Groats, and I live at 5513 Park Place. Mayor, members of the City Council, I live in the Minnehaha Woods Street Reconstruction Project. I replaced my sewer and water line as recommended by the city. At a February meeting, the city engineer and staff said the city would be replacing all the water service lines in Minnehaha Woods with a 1-inch water line from the water main to the curb stop box at each residence. He and others and staff, including SEH, said a larger line would not be required. All we would ever need is a 1-inch line, even if a larger house was built on our property. My wife was with a contractor when the contractor told Mr. Hool that he was required by the city to put in 1.5-inch lines on properties with lots smaller than ours. We live in an area where homes are being torn down and rebuilt. On further investigation, I was told at the city that I could get a 1.5-inch line. All I had to do was request it. Jesse Struve has since told me the cost difference will be about $1,000 to go from 1 inch to 1.5. As Mr. Kirchman is on vacation until next week, I spoke with a plumbing inspector today. I inquired about the house at 4600 Oak Drive, which was required to put in an 1.5-inch line. I was told a plumbing code is changing this fall, and at that time only a 1-inch line would be required. We contacted the Minnesota DLI, which enforces a plumbing code today, and we're told differently. They would be very surprised if a code change happened as soon as this fall. DLI said it could take from 3 to 4 years or longer. I also found this very recent article, which I'll leave, from Minnesota Finance and Commerce, which discusses adoption of a new plumbing code, which says the same thing. My wife and I would like to get a letter from the city stating We only need a 1-inch line from the city main to the curb stop box to obtain a building permit in the future. My neighbor has been told by Jesse Struve in the engineering department that it would cost more than $6,000 to $7,000 to open up the streets if a 1.5-inch line is needed after the streets are completed. It's hard to make a decision when you cannot get accurate facts. $1,000 is an unreasonably high price given the cost difference in a pipe is only $5 a foot. The general contractor has now started pipe bursting in the project, so time is of the essence. Given it takes many years to change the state plumbing code, why did staff and the engineering department tell homeowners all they would ever need is a 1-inch line, and why is the cost so excessive? Why wasn't the price for a 1.5-inch line negotiated prior to the start of the project? Thank you for your assistance with this, Mayor and members of the City Council.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? Community comment? Okay. Hearing no one and seeing no one coming forward, we'll move on to the next portion of the agenda, which is the reports and recommendations portion of the agenda. The first item there, 7A, is the matter entitled Request for Minor Changes to Building Water Senior Housing Project. Director Teague, you have this matter?
I do. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Before you again is a request for minor changes to a proposed building for the Waters Senior Housing Project at 6200 Colonial Way. I'm sure the council is very familiar with this site, located on Crosstown and Tracy, just south of Countryside Park. The applicant is requesting to shrink the size of the building by 28 feet for the purpose of providing 7 affordable housing units within the development. The reduction in the size of the building would help defray the costs in constructing the building that would enable them to provide those 7 affordable units. The building itself would still contain 139 units. So the parking required, there would be some parking spaces lost within the underground parking as a result of shrinking of the building. 36 spaces under the building, and there would be 1 surface stall that would be removed. They still, however...
Would you clarify that again? How many stalls would be removed under the building?
36.
36 would be removed.
Right, right. And 1 on the surface. So there would be a total of 76 spaces based on our code that's required, and there's 126 that would still remain on the site, both surface and underground.
So 76 required, and how many?
126.
126.
And the church parking would not be affected. That would remain the same. Based on the capacity of the church, they would have adequate parking. 286 required and 341 are proposed. By providing the 7 units of affordable housing, it helps the city achieve its goals with Met Council, in which in turn it helps us obtain grants similar to the grant that we obtained for the Grandview study. Per our current policy, staff is asking that the City Council to determine whether these changes are minor or if they're significant enough to send back to the Planning Commission for additional review and discussion. In looking at what's on the screen here is the building that has been approved by the council, and I'll click on the next slide, and you'll notice in this area here is where the change comes in. It's subtle, but that's the most noticeable change. What's on the screen here, outlined in red, is the footprint of the building that's been approved, and outlined in yellow would be the proposed outline of the building. You see it would be pinched in somewhat in that location. I should mention that the preliminary plat for this project has expired. The application, or the applicant is required to make a new application, and the plat itself establishing this lot still would need to go back to Planning Commission and then to the City Council. In conclusion, staff would consider these changes to be minor and would not recommend further review by Planning Commission or City Council. However, if the council does determine that additional consideration is needed, the applicant then has the option to pursue those changes or just simply go back to the plan that was approved by the council. With that, the applicant is here and staff can stand for questions as well.
All right, thank you, Director Teague. Questions for Director Teague? Member Brindle, Member Sprague?
Just a question on the church parking. At 341, that's the current parking on their site. I mean, that's not going to change one way or another.
Right.
Okay.
Member Bennett?
Yes, Director Teague, it's my understanding that other assisted living facilities in the city are zoned PSR, Planned Senior Residential, and I'm not raising this question for consideration of the zoning at this point, but I understand that there are different parking regulations for Planned Senior Residential. What, with 139 units, had this been zoned Planned Senior Residential, how many parking spaces would be required, and what would this change do to that number?
Yeah, I would have to take a look at our code and run that calculation. I don't know off the top of my head if this were a different type of facility.
Again, not to raise the question of the zoning, and not a different type of facility, because in fact of the city's other assisted living facilities, it's my understanding that all of them are zoned Planned Senior Residential?
You are correct. We do have senior housing that have our standard planned residential district designation. Over time, a lot of our apartment buildings turn into senior housing. They may have been developed and parked based on all-age residential. They may have evolved in time into senior housing.
Member Brindle.
I got one. Thank you. This question may be for you, Director Teague, or it may be for Mr. Jensen. But the area of the building that is actually changed to make this possible is not that units have decreased in size, but it is the common area that has decreased in size. Is that true?
That's my understanding. The applicant could expound on that further.
Do you want Mr. Jensen to answer that question for you?
Yeah, that would be great if you could, Mr. Jensen.
Identify yourself, please, for the record.
Mayor, Jay Jensen with Waters Senior Living, 1600 Hopkins Crossroads, Minnetonka. Councilmember Brindle, that's exactly correct. Basically what we did, and you can see from those pictures, is that we took out 28 feet exactly in the middle of the building, and it's 100% common area. And we still believe the building will function every bit as efficiently as was originally designed. It works well either way. Our goal is really to try to create 7 affordable housing units.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Other questions for staff or the applicant right now? I know we've had quite a bit of correspondence on this issue over the past week or so. And in thinking about this issue of what kind of a proposed change is this, I know staff thinks it's de minimis. Some of the emails that we got said, don't let staff make this decision. We went through this issue several years ago. We used to have staff make minor calls on design changes or material changes or even the scope of the project. And then we had a particular project where it didn't work out real well to have staff making the decisions, and we changed the policy. And so that these changes then that come after the final development plan is approved have been coming to the council. After studying the materials that you've given us and thinking about the voice that some of the folks in our community want to have on both sides of this issue, it strikes me that one way to handle this matter would be to lay this particular issue over for 2 weeks and then give people an opportunity to submit any written comments they might have in that gap period, the next 2 weeks, with regard to their opinion as to whether this minor change ought to be approved or not approved. I don't feel comfortable moving this towards the notion of some kind of a public hearing either here or at the Planning Commission, because this isn't what was intended by this council. If we're going to do that, if we're going to have a process where we've moved changes, minor changes from the planner to the council, and then we think, well, there might be some changes we want to have someone look at. We've never made that determination as to what those standards would be for whether or not we ship the issue on to somebody else or have a public hearing ourselves. And because we have not done that, I think we should keep the issue here. We should deal with it here, but we should give people that have a concern about this project an opportunity to write in and express those concerns, and then we'll set the matter over to the next council date on the 21st, and then decide at the council level as to whether or not we want to approve these changes.
Mayor, can I request, have a question to Manager Neal and to Carrie. Do we have enough time? Because I would like to be able to send out notice to this area if we're going to do that, to request their written comments. So Manager Neal, do we have time to send out notice and give them 10 days so they can respond?
So if I understand your question right, Councilmember Swenson, is you're asking, do we have enough time to identify the impacted area, so some circumference from that area, and send them a letter to say, this item is going to be considered at the next council meeting, but if you'd like your input to be considered, get it to the council in writing prior to that date.
Right, and give them the different vehicles, whether by email or the address where they would send it.
Yeah, I think that we do. We might advise them that electronic mail might be the best way to get that to you ASAP. We'd include that in the notification, but I think we have time to identify that. We probably have that search and address file identified, I'm guessing. Is that right, Mr.
We do. We could probably send letters out within the next day or two requesting email responses back to the planning department. We could be the clearinghouse for all the responses and then bring those back to you.
So yes, I think we can do that.
Member Bennett, then Member Sprague.
If I might, I'd like to look at the code provision specifically in question this evening, because I'm not sure that we have authority to do anything but send it back to the Planning Commission. I understand that the proponent is referring to this as a minor change, and the first sentence, this is on page 85026 for those of us who have our new code pages in front of us. It is 850.04, and it's under procedure for rezoning. It's number 9, changes to approved final site plan. It reads, minor changes in the location and placement of buildings or other improvements may be authorized by the planner. Proposed changes to the approved final site plan affecting structural types, building coverage, mass, intensity or height, allocation of open space, and all other changes which affect the overall design of the property shall be acted on, reviewed, and processed by the Commission and Council in the same manner as they reviewed and processed the final site plan, except that a 3/5 favorable vote of the Council shall be required to authorize the proposed change. I guess I don't see, with that specificity of what proposed change sends it back through the process, I'm not sure where the authority is in this to define this a minor change and to propose a process other than that process.
Aren't we defining the process to determine whether it's a minor change? I mean, that's a threshold issue. And then at that 2-week hearing, we make the decision, and from there, if it's not a minor change, it goes back. If it is, then the planner's authorized to approve it.
Well, it might have benefited from different drafting, but this is the drafting that we have. And it seems to differentiate between minor changes on the one hand and proposed changes to structural types, building coverage, mass, intensity or height, allocation of open space. So that seems to be the differentiation that it sets up, which I think would place the proposed change in that latter category, not the former category.
I think but the modifying language, the key language there is those things that affect the overall design of the property. And that goes back to what Member Sprague said, is this a minor change or not? And I think that's what staff determined, is that the change that they proposed by reducing those common areas by 28 feet did not affect the overall design of the property, hence putting it into the category of decision-making that Member Bennett is talking about. That, in your opinion, as a professional planner, it was a minor change, ergo, either you could deal with it or we could deal with it without going back through that same process we had to go through for the final site plan. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So I think that comes full circle back to Member Sprague's comment, is that when we reconvene in 2 weeks, I think we need to decide as a council, is this a minor change or not? And if we don't have a majority of our folks that think it's a minor change, then we've got to think about going through a different process. Or the proponent, the applicant, can decide if they want to just pull it and stick with the plan that they've already got that doesn't involve any affordable units.
Well, if it's not a minor change, we don't think about it's simply remanded to the process of final site plan review by commission and council. If it's not a minor change, that's the process. Unless it's withdrawn, it's going back to the commission and council, period.
Right.
Yeah.
The phrase to which the mayor refers, and all other things which affect the overall design of the property, that appears to me to be a conjunctive. In other words, the listed things plus and all other things in case those other things weren't in the list, rather than a qualifier. So it appears to me that that phrase is not qualifying building coverage, mass, intensity, or height, but rather, again, it's a catch-all category at the end in case something is proposed that doesn't fit within those prior things. Even though I understand this is a reduction, it is a reduction of parking as well as a reduction of other things. And that caused, I've reread this passage maybe 10 times, because it doesn't, again, seem to differentiate between increase or decrease. It simply says something that changes building coverage.
Sure. I don't disagree with you on the fact that it goes from the specific to the general. But all of those things are modified, whether they're specific or general, in my opinion, by the language which affect the overall design of the property, which leads you back to Member Sprague's comment. We're going to reconvene in 2 weeks and decide, is this a minor change or not that we can make, or do we have to go back through the process?
Right. I mean, we're either going to argue it out today and make the decision, or we wait 2 weeks, get public comment, and then do it then, because there's going to be different interpretations.
Sure. And to me, I would prepared to argue it tonight, but I think people ought to have a chance to get notice of this thing and have a chance to have their voice heard in writing. I mean, that's kind of new ground for us, too. Usually we've just dealt with these matters in the normal course of our process at the council level when we've had a change to deal with. So, yeah, Member Brindle.
Well, the argument that I came in with tonight is the second to the last paragraph on the report and recommendation. And that is a one-sentence paragraph that says, per city council policy, any changes proposed to a site plan must be brought to the city council for consideration. That's the paragraph that told me my marching orders on this coming into tonight. And that has nothing to do with whether the changes are good changes. They, in my opinion, as I mentioned to you, to Mr. Jensen and Mr. Anderson when we met at Colonial Church, they're good changes. It looks great. But the fact is that the city council did make its decision, and if there's a change to a plan that the city council has approved, this sentence right here says it has to come before us for consideration. So whether staff can be given the ability to make that final decision, I think that paragraph defines it for me. I mean, we have cases in point of situations that have been built in our city that ended up differently than they were initially proposed, and that is why that paragraph exists.
That's something I didn't cover earlier, and you make a good point. I think that is that I don't think any of us on this council, without specifically saying so, have thought that the planner ought to make this decision. We think the council ought to be making this decision.
Why don't we change the ordinance then? I mean, why do we have it authorized by planner? I'm just saying.
Well, because there are changes that could be so minor. I mean, we did give him the ability to use his judgment on when to bring it to us.
Right.
Okay.
And he's done that. And this is what he's doing today.
Yeah.
Well, he's doing it today per policy. It's not that in his judgment, there's a policy that vitiates this phrase, authorized, can be authorized by the planner, may be authorized by the planner,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the policy is why he brought it
It's
here.
permissive.
Yep.
Yes, staff would agree. We've been doing this by policy for maybe 2 years now, and it seems to be working. Maybe we ought to put that into ordinance now. I don't see that policy changing, so we really should have it in ordinance rather than having that language.
Yep.
I
I
mean,
think all of us would be comfortable codifying it.
It could just say may be authorized by the council, right? Minor changes may be authorized by the council.
Because right now, the two processes that are defined are either it's approved by staff because it's a minor change, or if it's something on the list, it goes back through the process that was used for the original approval.
But I also think it says that council can agree that it is a minor change.
I don't want to see, personally, I don't want to see every minor change. If they change the dimension of a room by a foot and a half or something, I don't want to see that back here. That's why we gave him, the planner, some flexibility on using a judgment about when to bring it back to us and when not to bring it back to us.
Well, and that list is actually some pretty comprehensive that talks about things that are more publicly visible. I think that the dimension of a room, an interior dimension, is not going to have an impact on the surrounding properties.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't understand the difference between what I'm saying and the policy. The policy is, I mean, this is changes to approved final site plan. Minor changes may be authorized by planner, and we're saying, in this case, they have to be authorized by council for anything to be done. What's the city council policy that he's acting on? It says that he has to be authorized by council. So in both instances, it's council's call. So that's why I would say put that in the ordinance later. I mean,
yeah, we can discuss what an ordinance ought to look like, what the language ought to look like later. But I think for purposes of this proposed change in the scope of the project.
we're talking about process, not the substantive issue right now. So we have to come to some kind of agreement on the process used to make the substantive decision. What are the options? Decide tonight, decide in 2 weeks. That's it, right?
Right.
So would it be better for us to receive more public input on a project that was very difficult for part of the community? It was a substantial change in the use, in the intensity of the use on this parcel. So I think we err on the side of caution and take a couple weeks to receive written comment, and then we can all, 2 weeks from now, argue about the merits of whether it's minor or not.
I just want to clarify that I think that's the purpose of the ordinance as it's currently written, is to provide for that public input. I think that's why it provides that if there is a change to the approved final site plan, those changes will go back through the Planning Commission and the Council and have that opportunity for public input. I understand very clearly what you and others are saying. I'm just saying that I think that is indeed the purpose for the ordinance as it's written.
Okay. But we can't determine that until we know whether it's minor or not, according to this council.
Well, if it's not minor, we have a roadmap here.
Right.
So I guess now we've had a good discussion about it. Is there a motion to table this matter for 2 weeks and take public input, have the public noticed pursuant to our rules, and then bring this matter back on June 21st for a decision as to whether or not this is a minor change?
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay.
Nay.
Carried. All right. Next is a resolution accepting various donations. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. We accept the various donations embodied in Resolution 2011-58. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. There are donations this reporting period to the Edina Arts Center and the Braemar Memorial Fund and the Edina Park Department. And I've got a couple I want to just single out here that are really significant. And one is by our longtime resident, Ray O'Connell, who was on the park board for several years. I just saw him at age 80-something the other night at Braemar with his golf bag over his shoulder, trudging over to the putting green to see some of his buddies. And through his Schwab Charitable Fund account, he has left or gifted $25,000 to the Braemar Memorial Fund. Quite a significant gift. So let's all make certain to thank Ray personally when we see him next. And then with regard to the Edina Park Department, the Edina Lions Club donated $5,000 for ticket booth restoration work at Courtney Fields, and that was another just tremendous gift. And then just in passing, I would say Zibby Nunn, Tim Nunn, we have that ballpark dedicated to him. His mom has donated some money for a tree over in York Park, which was where the dedication for Tim took place. And his brother did a song that he wrote the other night at Current Jam about him, which was quite moving. So, good. Those are the reports for the time being on the donations. Next, we have a proposed ordinance regarding rooftop dining. The council had directed staff at our last meeting to prepare a
Park board appointment.
Oh, excuse me. Park board reappointment. I walked right by that one. I wonder what happened to that. I've got it. Oh, we're talking about David Deeds being reappointed to the Park Board. And is there a motion to that effect? It's been moved and seconded. We reappoint David Deeds to the Park Board. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. At our last meeting, we asked the staff to prepare a draft of an ordinance prohibiting rooftop dining in Edina in all zoning districts, and we have a draft in front of us. Director Teague, you want to handle this matter for us?
Certainly. Not much more to add to that, other than at the direction of the city attorney, we use the definition of rooftop restaurant, which was the same language that was used in the moratorium that was in effect over the past almost year now. So with that, if the council is comfortable with this language, we would recommend that you waive second reading and adopt the ordinance. And as recommended by the council, we'll set up a work session with the Planning Commission to further discuss this rooftop restaurant dining issue, likely in the fall.
Member Swenson.
I maybe didn't read the original moratorium, but it says the highest floor of a building. So would there ever be a building that has 1 story and then 2 stories, and the rooftop dining ends up being on the 1-story part, and the 2-story part would have been the highest part?
Yeah, that's a good question. Podium dining.
Podium dining, yeah. Lowest podium
Somehow
dining.
podium
Well, you
dining.
know what I mean, though. Not everything is the highest, so.
Covering any part of
Any
the
part
building,
of
a building or restaurant.
There could be, yeah, the
I mean,
highest
I know
floor of a
that's sort of picky, but
building or restaurant. So the restaurant would have to, the rooftop restaurant would have to be below the restaurant. And it could be attached to a building.
Why can't we say covering any part of a building or restaurant?
I would support that.
You support that?
But it's a roof. Well, roof, you say roof.
It's a roof. Whether
Right.
there's something above it or not, it's a roof of one part of the building.
Which is what I think the change.
Because that's the intent.
Yeah.
What about that balcony dining issue? I mean,
Don't go
the
there.
balcony isn't a roof, but it could be tantamount to.
I think if we change the language, it's inclusive, and I think that question or issue can be addressed with the Planning Commission in the context of other discussions, the question of podium, balcony.
Sidewalk,
Yeah.
all
So
different.
it would read, a restaurant or any portion of a restaurant open to customers on the roof covering any part of a building or restaurant. Does that make sense?
Okay.
because we've changed it, does that mean that everyone would be more comfortable if we didn't approve first and second reading, or are you okay with
I'm
first and
comfortable
second
with
reading?
it. I'm okay.
Then I would move this and call for roll call and have it be both first and second.
Second. All right, we've got a motion and a second to handle this matter with a waiver of second reading in its amended form, read by Member Swenson. Further discussion? Roll call.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett. Member Brindle.
Aye.
Mayor Hovland.
Aye. And next, we have proposed ordinance 2011-10 regarding an amendment to the Transportation Commission purpose and duties. Mr. Sullivan, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. In addition to my duties as the Assistant City Engineer, I'm also the staff liaison for the Transportation Commission. With me tonight, too, is the Chair of the Transportation Commission, Jennifer Janovi. The Transportation Commission is presenting to you a revised ordinance for the number 2011-10, revising the Section 1509 of the Transportation Commission purpose and duties as proposed by the Transportation Commission. This was first brought to you on May 17th. At that time, there was kind of two outstanding issues that were kind of floating around. There was some concern with staff, or by staff, as to the meaning and kind of the underlying definition of some of the language in there. And then secondly was the draft ordinance that was presented by Councilmember Sprague, kind of layered on some revisions that needed to be looked at. At that time, council members asked staff to bring this back to the Transportation Commission. We were able to do that on May 19th, just 2 nights after the last council meeting. And before you is what they've determined to be their final draft of this, and have it here for your review and comment tonight. And like I said, myself or Jennifer Janovi can answer any questions you may have.
Questions for staff or Chair Janovi? Member Sprague?
Yes. Just, can you talk about the, so there's some sticking points in terms of process. How were those resolved for the future in terms of capital improvement project review and citizen traffic complaint reports? Did you talk about the future process that will be used so we're not duplicating efforts?
We certainly did. We sat down and the Transportation Commission, the intent of their involvement with those two issues that you can, and how staff saw those issues and what additional labor may be involved, timelines, stretching out things. And we kind of came to an agreement that of what their expectations were and what staff's expectations were. And I think we're going to be moving forward with some kind of, maybe not the bylaws, but maybe kind of an understanding, a policy of what the process will be, and some kind of timeline formatted in there. And we believe that a lot of the review of this information, the comment data, will then it would be a stop along the process for council eventual approval on, say, a traffic safety issue, a stop sign request. So what we'll do is, in most cases, maybe a 2 to 3 week or maybe a month at most delay before council would receive something like this. But we'd attach the comments from the Transportation Commission on that. So I think just like I said, we're in the draft stages right now of what the language would be to kind of supplement or add on to the bylaws that would kind of say what's our practice or policy for this type of activity. So I think we've, staff versus the Transportation Commission, we've worked together here and resolved this and can move forward with an understanding and agreement.
So in the not too distant future, we can expect some type of supportive policies to clarify the roles and the timelines. Is that the intent?
Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll kind of put together a kind of a practice document at first. I think the next step would be bylaw approval. That's something that the council's working on. And I think what we'll do is be able to attach that to the bylaws basically as a practice or procedure that we'd be going through to get expectations not only for the Transportation Commission, not only for council, but for the residents as well. So as these things are moving through, they understand where the different stops are. Nice kind of like it's just a timeline kind of chart, so to speak, that would be able to make everybody on the same page for these type of issues.
Sounds good.
Member Brindle.
I like it, and thank you. I'm glad that we held it over till today because I had read Member Sprague's comments, and while I liked them, I was thinking, but wait a minute, this is what we really are approving. So I'm happy that we waited till tonight because I think what we have here is really the structure of a commission that allows it to be visionary. And I think that looking at the two process areas that were just mentioned gives the opportunity for this commission to interact in some of the real life concerns going on, whether they be the traffic safety issues or capital investment projects that affect traffic. As this commission moves forward and provides vision for us, it's important that it sees the pains and the concerns that are going on right now so that they can be designed through in those future situations. So I'm very excited about what I see, and thanks for taking the time to do it.
Other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We adopt.
Is that, are we waiving second reading?
I'd like to amend, okay.
Well, I think I'll waive second reading.
Yeah. The main motion is.
Can you withdraw and re-motion?
Move. Waive second reading.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll accept that.
Second. And discussion? All right. Roll call, please.
Member Sprague.
Aye.
Member Swenson.
Aye.
Member Bennett.
Aye.
Member Brindle.
Aye.
Mayor Havlin.
Aye. And now we are down to mayor and council comments, and Member Brindle. I'll start with you this week.
I had a fun-filled weekend standing in a booth at the Edina Art Fair all weekend. And on behalf of the Edina Crime Prevention Fund, I and a group of my cohorts staffed the West Information booth in Lunds. And it's always a great, just a great weekend. And it's just fun. It's great people watching for 3 days, and we had terrific weather. So it was good. Saw lots of people, spread lots of cheer. And just letting you know that I will miss the next council meeting on June 21st. Ralph and I are going to take a 10-day vacation. We're going to go visit friends in Germany. So we may be thinking of you on June 21st, but we'll be having loads of fun in the Black Forest area of Germany. So we'll catch you in July.
All right, thank you. Member Bennett.
Thank you. I did attend the meeting, the NPDES Phase 2 MS4 permit meeting. In other words, it's how the community handles the stormwater that is generated within the community during construction, post-construction, on an ongoing basis. There is licensing that is obtained. Those licenses run for about 4 years. We will be entering a new license period, I believe, beginning next year. Comments are being sought, and the purpose of this meeting each year is to take questions from members of the public and officials and respond to those questions. There will be a repeat, I believe, or a recap at least, of the presentation at the Energy and Environment Commission meeting on Thursday. So those who missed yesterday afternoon's presentation but would like to hear it could do so. And I believe also that Jesse Struve of the Engineering Department can send that out electronically to people who would like that. I can emphasize the minimum control measures, the first of which is public education and outreach. Second is public participation and involvement. Third is illicit discharge detection and elimination. And there is a report a problem. Click on the city's website, on the engineering webpage, that people in the community can use to report ongoing problems. If it is a short-term emergency problem, of course, that always should be reported, I believe, the police department. Somebody answering the phone in that short-term manner. Fourth, construction site stormwater runoff control. Fifth, post-construction stormwater management. And then finally, sixth, pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations. So we were a small group. There was someone there from the Water Quality Working Group of the Energy and Environment Commission. Chair of the Energy and Environment Commission, Diane Plunkett-Latham, was there. I was there. And the three of us generated enough questions to take up about an hour and a half. And it was...
No question.
It was an interesting discussion, and we got a lot of answers. We also had some suggestions, and Jesse was taking a lot of notes. So we can maybe look for some more community education and outreach efforts in the future, including possibly adopt a storm drain programs similar to what's used with the parks. City did a great job this year in removing snow and ice that had accumulated around storm drains, but we can also see after some of the summer storms accumulation of debris that can impede stormwater. And in a side note, I am having a consultation next week with Metro Blooms, which has done rain garden demonstrations and projects, including at Powderhorn Park, and am purchasing a consult for the installation of a rain garden on my own property. And depending on the results of that consultation, I will invite people to come watch installation and follow it a little more closely. Member Brindle and I will be starting this week interviews for student applicants for boards and commissions. 20 students applied, wonderful number. And City Clerk Deb Mangan this year will be managing the process for us, which will be greatly, greatly appreciated.
Member Bennett, how many positions?
I believe 16, 8 commissions and 2, with the ordinance change last year, 2 student board members per board or commission. Not every board or commission has a student member. For example, the Construction Board of Appeals does not have a student member. 2 more brief points. One is that Night to Unite is again the first Tuesday in August, and neighborhoods that wish to hold events should contact the fire department and police department to schedule visits. Those departments have been really accommodating, and it can be quite informative for adults and exciting for kids to have the fire truck and police dog come out. And finally, we had discussed at the end of February adding meetings, joint meetings with the school board on a regular basis, and I'm wondering if we will be putting one of those on the schedule soon.
I'm going to tell you about it.
Good, great. Member Swenson.
I was honored to represent the mayor and the rest of the council members at the graduation, I call it, but it's really the retirement. And I think 33 retiring teachers this year. Peyton was at it. There were 25 there, but really just a fabulous group of people that have represented our schools and taught our kids and worked in the schools in other indirect ways, and it was really cool. And I was honored to do that and be that person. We had 2 things. One, we had something from a question on plumbing and an inch pipe versus an inch and a half. Are we going to be able to forward that to get us an answer for this customer so I can just resident? So, yes. Okay, thank you. The other thing is we had a note from the head of our planning commission with an issue that's cropping up, which I actually had anticipated a couple months ago when we met with them, but they didn't seem to really listen at the time, and it's that we now have a variance board and a planning commission, and they meet twice a month, and there are more meetings. My recommendation at that time is they set the variance board to be maybe a 5-member board, and they be able to rotate it so that there would always be 5 people there, and they wouldn't have to worry about attendance for that part of their meeting. They haven't done that. They have it as all planning commission, and now they would like some special dispensation on number of meetings missed in a row, et cetera. We've tried to keep our changes between our boards a minimum and keep them as cohesive in their rules as possible. So I think at some point we need to put this on the agenda and maybe not count their attendance until we do that, because I really think we need to come up with a viable solution for this, and whether it's that we give them a special rule for them or we have them change the number that come to their variance boards so that we don't have to worry about attendance for them, or we don't count attendance at various variance boards, but I really hate making them a special thing.
One way to avoid that is that we do make it clear in the code that committee meetings, even committee of the whole meetings, are exempt from the
variance
attendance
board a
requirement.
committee of the whole?
That would have been
I
something
think
that would have been.
Roger already told us that it wasn't.
No,
so-
and that would have been something good to have. I mean,
Yeah.
it was the planning commission that recommended the code change and wanted to take on the function of the zoning
I
board
know
of
that.
appeals.
I know that. I don't, but at this point, the value of the education they get as planning members, I would rather not start having to remove people on a regular basis from planning commission. So I'd like a solution to this, and I'd like it fairly quickly. There are a couple ways to do it. One is to make it a smaller group. The other is to give them a special rule.
Smaller group, though, undermines that educational opportunity you're talking about, because only 5 get the exposure.
But there's a different 5 every 2
rotates,
weeks.
right,
Trust
okay,
me, I've been on a rotating variance board. You get a ton of exposure, and I don't think you need all members at every variance board. I think 5 is sufficient.
If you did a Team A and a Team B, and Team A was consistent and was the first of the month, and Team B was consistent and the second of the month, you would have the education function fulfilled. I'm stating that by way of question. And you would have a manageable attendance commitment.
I think you probably could. I'd like them to come up with a solution without us having to change the rule. Do you think that's possible, Carrie?
I think they would be glad to make you a recommendation. The concern that they have in particular is the 3 meetings in a row. They're not so concerned about the 25%. That's all percentages, and they're okay with that. And they're most concerned, too, with for the rest of the year moving forward now, we've completely changed all the dates of our meetings to accommodate that twice a month. And they've made plans, and it's putting some hardships on some people.
Well,
We're at risk this year because
Right.
of plans that were made, particularly for family vacations, because of our rules.
Right. I think what
So
they're
we may need
looking.
to think about some sort of an exemption through 2011, or at least
Right.
from the attendance requirements.
We can just kick that around and bring you some options back, maybe as early as our next meeting.
That'd be great, but I think we need to get on it so we don't end up with an issue. Thank you.
Good
That
point.
was my only.
Okay. Member Sprague.
A couple things on correspondence. Someone wrote in, Mr. Beeson, about 59th Street and some signage. Mr. Houle, did you have a chance to review that correspondence?
I apologize, I did not review that, but I can give you an update on the no parking signs. In our your last traffic safety report, you approved the no parking signs on West 59th Street. We originally had approved on the south side. Staff thought that was the best place for them. Started installing them, or actually went out for go for one locates on it, and the residents brought it to our attention that they'd like it on the north side. So I actually went out with a survey form or letter to the 12-4 residents, and 2 of them wanted on the no parking on the north side. One wants it on the south side, and the other one doesn't want no parking at all. So we're recommending that we go back and put the no parking on the north side, as the majority wanted in that case.
Okay, I think in his correspondence he says that they all, all. Who was the survey was sent out to the 4?
To the 4
okay.
homeowners, yeah.
And this gentleman is under the impression that all 4 said they wanted no parking signs installed. So.
Yeah, that one we could bring back to you on the next traffic safety report if you'd wish. Our fire marshals actually would for it. So it's a safety issue.
Huge safety
So you'd have to have no parking on one side or the other. It's really not a choice of not having no parking.
Especially this winter. It was so bad this winter that if you had an emergency there, you could potentially not get close enough to a house, right? One of the 2 middle houses because of snowbanks and everything. It has to be no parking on one side.
2 said north, 1 said south, and 1 said none.
Right.
And the best practice would dictate the north because
it's probably the closest to consent that we'll get on that
Oh.
street. Yep.
So there's no engineering reason.
Nope, absolutely not. We just need it on one side or the other.
Okay. Secondly, the air conditioner at York Gardens, there was some correspondence sent in. I guess the air conditioners was not on the building permit of the site plan. Mr. Teague, can you comment on this?
Certainly, Councilmember Sprague and Council. There was the large air conditioner unit that was constructed on the site. It was not shown on the final site plan that was approved by the council. It was not shown on the building permit plans that were reviewed and approved by staff. A couple of issues here. They need to amend the site plan to show that that chiller unit on the plan, and also it's by our definition a structure, and it doesn't meet the required setback, so they also need variances. So they have made application for an amendment to their site plan and for variances. We had a public hearing scheduled for June 15th at the Planning Commission meeting. The applicant has requested that we not move forward with that date. They want to tighten up their plans. There's also a noise issue. The unit itself exceeds our state statutes for decibels. It's too loud, so they need to address that as well. They're looking at a combination of fencing and landscaping and attaching things to the unit. And they've been advised they may have to move the structure as well. There's no guarantee with variances being approved and the site plan being approved. So they're in the process.
Okay, so it will be resolved in June, possibly July, depending on their timing of resubmittal?
My question
Correct.
to you is this. Since it was brought forward by a resident who, and I think there are a few residents along there, but one specifically that really is suffering under especially the noise, but obviously it doesn't look great either. Is there a way that we can make sure that they are fairly quick in coming up with at least the beginning of a solution that we can respond to one way or another? Because I really don't, it's not a site plan. To me, if they don't come forward quickly with some sort of resolution, come up with it,
Then they're just
they
not
got to
in
remove it.
compliance, yeah.
They're not in compliance. It needs to be removed, and I don't think they want to do that. So how do we let them know that we expect this to be resolved fairly quickly?
Yeah, staff is putting pressure on them because we continue to receive the complaints on noise and just how it looks. So we certainly want them to move forward as quickly as possible. They did submit a complete application with the proposed screening and a fence around the unit, and we were prepared to move forward with that. That's when the noise issue came into play. And so because they need to address that noise issue also, that's when they wanted to delay the project and come forward with a package that addresses all of those issues. So we're hoping that it's only going to delay the project a couple of weeks, and we'll have it on the June 29th Planning Commission agenda.
Is there any way that they can engage in some temporary noise abatement strategies that would assist these folks through these hot days of summer here? Or
Yeah,
between now and when the Planning
we can
Commission-
certainly explore that with them, and the heat that unit has been running a lot. So.
And I'll get in touch with the resident and let them know what the process is, so it's underway. One way or another, it's going to be resolved in the near future.
In terms of delay, there's no delay. The project is built and open and occupied, correct? So what is in abeyance is seeking a variance for something that was already built that wasn't approved.
That's correct.
I guess I agree with the mayor that I would like to see something done sooner rather than later. For one thing, what is proposed may in fact not be adequate at all.
Right.
And this is a good time to find out whether or not that's the case. In terms of noise abatement, in terms of screening, in terms of anything they'd like to try, they can try it. But I would really not want as a city to be bound to approving something that in fact is not going to work, and reestablish that balance that's supposed to ideally exist between property owners.
Yeah, I think they really have to know that we're very concerned about this as a council. As a group, all of us.
So the consensus is we'd like to see it on the next agenda? I mean, is that?
Well, it's going to go to the Planning Commission on the 29th.
Well,
gotta pray.
unless they want to turn it off.
Well, they can't do that. They got
I
the
know.
place 70% full and the memory care unit's full.
They're going to have some.
Well, and they do say that one of the reasons it's running at 100% right now is that they're bringing online additional HVAC equipment and that this one will, the use of this one will decrease as that other equipment comes online. Doesn't mean it's going to, that doesn't mean anything about its compliance. It just means how much it's running. In the
impact.
future.
Doesn't matter. It still sounds like its noise is too much, and even if it only comes on occasionally, if it exceeds the decibels, it's irrelevant.
It's really, go ahead, Member Bennett.
Well, one word that comes to mind is two words, really disappointing. Really, really disappointing. I think there was a lot of enthusiasm about this project, and to go to, this is very disappointing.
Okay, moving along. I was at the Mall of America recently, letting the kids run around, and I was looking at some brochure racks, and I saw these 3 brochures for the City of Hopkins, business opportunities, shopping and dining. I thought they were just some great pieces to promote business and business opportunities in the city. And I know that Manager Neal will be hiring an economic director in the near future, and I look forward to developing our own strategic plan for attracting and retaining high-quality employers in our community, and the benefit of doing business here in Edina. And that, to me, is a good model to follow. Take a look at the verbiage in the doing business handout. It's quite, and they also have a website to support business in the community as well. Domestic violence. Watch MN came to. The director came to talk to our Rotary Club and was talking about domestic violence cases in the suburban courts and case outcome data. And I took a look at the cases in Edina that were observed, and we have a high dismissal rate. And I would like to request that we ask our prosecutor to provide annual reports of the outcome of our domestic violence cases. This was simply observed cases by this third-party group and not the actual full data. This is Watch MN, yeah. And then secondly, a plan for improving our dismissal rates in this specific class of cases. Because I think, I know for a fact, we were an early adopter of the Blueprint for Safety, which was, and Chief Long is dedicated to reducing domestic violence and making sure it's properly prosecuted. And I think this is another step in the accountability that's needed. Finally, I would like to move that this council next year participate together in the 4th of July parade. And I know I'm a neophyte to the council, but I think it would be an important message to show solidarity among my colleagues, whom I have deep respect for, and it would be an opportunity for us to show ourselves together as a body in front of the community.
I'm the holdout. I run a huge golf tournament for 20 years on that date that has 8 families involved.
You have a whole year to plan, and I'm just looking for a second here.
I'll second it.
Maybe you should change your language, should do the best we can to be together on the 4th of July.
Well, the motion is that we have a combined entry, maybe not that everyone attends, so that we all know in advance. Well, do we have to have a work session on this?
No, I don't think
I just said I would be happy to work on it.
Okay, fair enough. But anyway, and it would be an honor to march with you all. That's all I have. Thanks.
Yes.
All right. How many of you play an instrument other than Member Brindle? I used to
Drums
have a little,
and bass.
little band. I used to
A
play
little
the trumpet.
band? We'll see.
I have a motion on the floor, and it's seconded.
You do. Further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right.
You're bound.
All right, good. Good. Yeah, you get the moral imperative here. Well, a lot of things going on in the last couple of weeks. First of all, with regard to York Gardens, they had their grand opening out there. The place was packed. They've been open 5 weeks. At the time of the grand opening, it was 70% full. And they had 79 units out there, and 31 units were memory care units. The memory care units were completely full. So I think it reflects our aging community and the demand for senior assisted living. the average age now in 7500 York is 87. And so those folks are moving next door as they need to a senior assisted living or to the memory care unit. We got to get that problem solved out there. I can't believe this happened. It's really astounding. So we will have an announcement soon with respect to our Healthy Community Initiative on who our partner is going to be for the cities of Bloomington, Richfield, and Edina on improving the overall health of our communities. And that will be an exciting initiative once we get rolling with our partner. But we are required, I think, Member Brindle, to maintain our silence for now, and the announcement will be out soon.
We are. You are correct.
All right. On the 23rd of May, Member Bennett and I and her husband, my wife, attended Homes Within Reach event at Hughes Pavilion. And Member Swenson was there too? Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah. And it was nice to see them have an event. I think they had some good success with it. I went home with something too, with a winning, as you would say. And let's see, then the next night on the 24th, I had a chance to have supper with Mike Langley, who is the new executive director of what they're now calling Greater MSP, which is the Regional Economic Development Partnership that we joined as an initial member of the offshoot of the Itasca work. Very sharp guy, and yeah, the old Red Up, which is now being rebranded as Greater MSP. And let's see, we had the Southwest LRT Management meeting on the 25th. The Citizen League had a meeting rethinking transportation finance, which was kind of the kickoff for this whole thing I told you about I agreed to participate in, which is another new acronym. You didn't really want to know any more acronyms. This is MBUF, Mileage-Based User Fee Study Group. So we had a planning meeting with MnDOT and the Humphrey School on the 1st of June, and then the kickoff meeting was on Monday for a couple hours over at the Humphrey School. We had about 25 people participating in that. At the Center for Transportation Studies meeting on the 2nd of June, they had a real interesting speaker from the university on alternative fuels, so you could see why it's important to start thinking about mileage-based user fees, because as we trend towards the use of electric vehicles, or as the professor was saying, his favorite dimethyl ether, DME, we're going to have to be thinking about how we're going to secure adequate funding to make sure that our roads, bridges, and our transit operations stay healthy and viable, and we can really effectively move people and goods. So this will be an interesting study. You can see the concerns already starting to play out. The ACLU is there. They're concerned about privacy. Does Big Brother know where you are in your car when they're doing mileage-based user fees, or does only your car know where you are? So that's it. A lot of people have iPhones, and the argument is, well, your iPhone already knows where you are, so to speak. Yeah, what's the difference? We kicked off the art fair on the morning of the 3rd. Member Brindle was over there with a healthy glow from the heat over there all day. I mean, I was there at 10 in the morning, and I came back at 7 o'clock at night, and you were still there.
You know, Charlie Sprague was there, too. He was on TV.
Was he?
Yeah, little 4-year-old Charlie.
Oh,
So
I was there all day.
We kicked off the art fair with some little kids. That's a good time. And then that same day, I also attended a meeting downtown at ULI. They've got a new program called Navigating the New Normal that Gordon Hughes is leading for them. And so he had a team put together there. I attended the first meeting just to see what they were planning to do there, and more about that later. And then on Saturday night, I went to Current Jam, which is something, if you haven't ever gone to Current Jam, which is a high school talent show, it is just incredible. You should try to make sure that you get there one of these years. I remember, Bennett, I think you typically go to that. I didn't see you this year.
My husband and son were both in it last year.
Current?
No, last year.
Or Current.
Yeah.
R-R-A-N-T.
So Pat was in the men's chorus.
Current, okay.
Current, yeah. Like the current, yeah. It's impressive. And then don't forget, tomorrow we've got 2 settings for the employee recognition event, starting at 11 o'clock, I think, at Braemar, or 11:30. It's the first setting.
Okay.
11 and 12:30? Okay. And then what else coming up Thursday night? If you haven't already got your tickets for the first annual Rotary Beer Tasting out at Braemar, they're having a beer tasting event on Thursday night. We'd encourage you to attend that and help out their foundation. And then the Public Art Committee has their opening event for the year for the promenade with their new sculpture pieces, and that's at 5 o'clock on the 15th. And then on this Friday, I'm going to attend I was asked to participate in what they call the MSP Export Initiative, which is something that we're doing through the Brookings Institute, and that's at the Carlson School on Friday morning, so I'm going to see what that's all about. So that's what's going on in my world for the city and for the region. Manager Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The golf, I got a number of updates for you. Golf Enterprise study, the contract was awarded to the National Golf Foundation. The consultant from NGF is going to arrive here Monday to start the contract, to be on site for the first site visit Monday the 13th, and the projected completion of that contract is the end of August. The flow rider bids are in. We had allocated a total of $1.2 million for that project, and the best, lowest package of bids, so there's 2 bids in a package, was actually $1,021,000. So there's a little bit of room there, but we feel pretty good about those bids, and those will be making their way through Park Board and then to Council for an award. The Edinburgh O&M study. This is a similar kind of study that we're doing at Edinburgh that we have already authorized at Braemar. We have 8 proposals that are being reviewed by a Park Board and staff committee. That project is slated to start in July, so that proposal actually I think is going to come to you July 5th. Their recommendation for that contractor, and it's supposed to wrap up at the end of November. The City of Edina will launch its first Facebook page, its first official Facebook page, on Monday, June 13th. How many
unofficial pages are there now? How many are we up to? 7? Okay.
This is the general. This is the general city page. We are going to be interviewing assistant city managers and human resources director candidates on Thursday and Friday. So I think assistant city managers on Friday and human resource candidates on Thursday. We have a robust interview process planned. There are 6 employee interview teams, 3 people on a team for each day. Nobody's on 2 different teams, so it's 36 people that are involved from throughout the organization, from all different departments. And so we've had an interview training and a chance to get together on Monday and talk about what we're looking for. One thing I will tell you that I told the staff is that, particularly for assistant city managers, is that we are not interviewing in order to select the next city manager. That's your privilege as council members in a council manager form of government, and that I'm not going to presume to be making that hire on your behalf. So that is a kind of a fundamental position in this selection process, and has been guiding the kind of candidates that we're going to be interviewing on Thursday, or on Friday. Officer Doug Wagner. I had emailed the council that Officer Wagner was involved in an auto accident last week. He was not at fault. He was injured in this auto accident. He was transported to the hospital, but was discharged and is at home now, and we do expect him to come back to work. So without getting too much into his health privacy issues, I can tell you that he was pretty bumped up, but that he is home, and we do expect him to come back to work. Let's see, meeting. We have a meeting with, we've gathered the staff liaisons for a meeting tomorrow to begin talking about issues relating to commission management, bylaws, those kind of issues, and that'll be the first time we've had that group together. July 5th, work session. We do not have I don't believe we have a subject for that work session yet. So if you have, if there's any ideas, let me know.
What happened with the sports dome?
The sports dome we have been trying to target for July 19th.
Okay.
Member Brindle would like to be back for that discussion, so we're targeting the 19th of July.
Are we meeting with the EEC on July 19th? I think that's on the calendar at present.
I thought that was the first week in August. Is that what's on the calendar?
No, that's July 19th.
Okay.
I wonder if we should consider not having that. Well, it's a regular council meeting day, so.
We'll re-examine that schedule then. The recording and rebroadcasting policy will be on your June 21st meeting agenda. I did have a meeting last week with Superintendent Dressen, and we have looked at August 15th as the next date for the joint meeting between council and school board. It's a Monday evening, and we would host that night. I asked staff today what their views are on what the proposed impacts to the city might be of the proposed or the very possible state government shutdown. We will experience some impacts of a state government shutdown in some of our areas, but some of the examples might be our connections with the BCA and how evidence is processed, blood and urine evidence in particular, driver's license, criminal histories, other kind of registration for predatory offenders. These kind of things we presume would not be updated while the shutdown was in play. We will not be able to hire new police officers that are licensed unless they are currently licensed and able to, because the post board would be shut down. There are also some support services we get from the Minnesota Department of Health for our public health group, and that would we also presume those would be unavailable. I'm using the word presume and assume, and because we really don't know at this point what is going to be declared essential public services yet, but we believe those are not going to probably fit that category. And finally, I had a chance to tour VEEP today. I met with Susan Freeman and learned a little bit more about their operations and toured their facility, and looks like a good partner in a big facility. And that's all I have for you.
You caused me to think of one other thing that you and I had with some other folks for a meeting on the 1st of June, and that was sort of a spontaneous call I got the day before from Tom Lehman, who was coming up here to check on his Edina Country Club project. And so we met with him out at Braemar, understanding that we were a couple years out yet from dealing with some debt. Talked to him about some of the things that we think might be important from a course improvement standpoint. And he's going to come back and meet with staff on the 22nd. And he said a planning horizon, if you wanted to make big course improvements, the 50th anniversary of Braemar will be in 2014. So if we were thinking about modernizing Braemar, for example, to bring it up to current standards, the irrigation system hasn't been was put in place in the early 80s. If we make improvements to the course, that might be a nice time to do it around that 50th anniversary mark. And then the driving range, he said we could act quickly on that if we had the ability to do that, and we've been talking about some ways that might be done, including using some of that. I don't know what we have to figure out the cost, but that $300,000 that was gifted to us from, and then maybe raise money too, is a possibility to make some immediate improvements that will generate revenue out there, because they now have a standalone statement for the driving range, I think, a financial statement. It looks pretty good. So anyway, that's just another piece of information for everybody. All right, anybody have anything else? All right, we stand adjourned.